Hello guys, in today's video I'm going to show you how to generate this cool modulation sort of CRT style circuit bending effect in Photoshop with no external assets, no plugins, just your photo and default Photoshop effects is all we're going to use today. Before I get started, my name is Jack. I run a website called Studio AAA. Right now I am making one free graphic design resource per month all year in 2024, and today is May 1st, so this is going to be my May resource. In this video, I'm going to show you a Photoshop action that I created for creating this effect. And then after that, I'm going to run through creating the effect yourself from scratch and like building all the assets that you need to get there, because it's not actually that hard. I will talk a little bit more about my thought process at the end of the video. First of all, I'm going to show you how to use the action that you can download for free from my website. And after I've shown you that, I'm going to show you how to build the effect yourself if you don't want to use the action. And then at the end of the video, like I said, I'll explain some more of the thought process stuff. So to move straight into Photoshop, when you download the effect from my website, you will get one of two ATN files. If you got the full Studio AAA CRT effects kit, you'll have all these effects and some more stuff as well. But if you just got the Photoshop modulation actions, then you'll just have these three. You don't need the full effects kit for this video at all. You just need the free version. So go get the free version and double click the ATN file with Photoshop open, or just go to Window, Actions. Once Actions pops up, click on these three lines at the top right, go to Load Actions, and then navigate to wherever you saved the file and load it in, and you'll see these actions appear in your Photoshop window. Just nest that away in your Photoshop UI somewhere like easy to access and pull in an image. I've been doing a lot of, I don't know why, I just feel like the horse silhouettes are cool. So I've been doing a lot of horse silhouettes in my work recently. Yeah, I'm going to use this image. Now, this effect is going to work best on images where your subject is bright and the background is dark. If you're working with a silhouetted image like this, what you need to do before anything is invert the image with Control I and then press Control and U to bring up the hue and saturation menu and just flip the hue around if you want to keep the colors, and then just convert that to a smart object, just so that the white areas are going to be in the right place basically. If you already had your main subject of your image in white, then you don't need to do that. This photo is, by the way, from Pexels by a guy called Osman Arbasi, but I'll leave a link to that photo in the description if you want to follow along. So for the first method, which is doing this with an action, select your image layer, click on Modulation, Prep Assets, Step 1. With that selected, come down to the bottom of your actions panel and click play. So it's created these two assets here, and it's giving you the instruction to place your image above the vertical displace layer, and then run step 2 with your image selected. So just click on your image, drag it to the top, and then click on step 2 and click play. You're going to get an error message depending on what kind of setup you had at the start. If you just dragged an image in and the image was your background layer, you won't get this error message. This is just there just in case people are using this and they're new to Photoshop. If you know that there's a difference between a background layer and a normal Photoshop layer, this error message is just saying we couldn't find a background layer, but it's okay. It doesn't matter if it couldn't find a background layer. Just press continue. So I'm going to bring you to adding a Gaussian blur to your image. I've already wrote out instructions obviously that come up, but I don't need these because I'm going to explain it to you now. The Gaussian blur is one of the elements you can control for this effect. The further you go with the blur, the more smooth your outputted like lines will be for the effect, but the further you go with the blur, the less clarity you'll have in your image. Same goes the other way. So if you don't go far enough with the blur, obviously your image will be very clear, but the lines will be jagged and it won't look very good. So I'm going to leave it in the middle at 22.2 pixels, and then I'm going to press OK. So it gives you some instructions here that are very important, otherwise the effect just won't work. So you can read this if you want, but obviously I wrote this so I can explain it to you now. It's going to prompt you to save the file as a PSD file somewhere on your computer. For me, it already knows the file path that I last used. For you, doesn't matter where you save it, just save it somewhere that you can remember and make sure that it is a PSD file. Don't save it as anything else. So I'm just going to name mine horse displacement and press enter. Click OK, and you'll notice here at the top we've got these three tabs open. So the action is now going to close this tab and return you back to your original document when I press OK. So this is step 2 done. Now you click on step 3 and click play. First thing that will pop up is the displace menu. Don't change anything, just press OK and navigate to wherever it is you saved your PSD file a moment ago and click on the one you saved and press open. You're then going to get another displacement menu. Don't change anything, just press OK and go back to the same displacement map and click on open. So at this point, you have now got the outputted modulation style lines that you can now use either vertically or horizontally, add glow to them and recolor and stuff. And I'm going to show you how to do that bit in today's video, so don't worry. I'm not going to leave you with just this. But the main bit of customization that you can do at this stage is decide whether you want your lines to be vertical or horizontal. You've got these two layers here, horizontal and vertical. One of them is in a blending group, and I'm going to explain all this and why this works, how it works and stuff later on in the video. Basically, right now, as you can see, I've got vertical lines for my modulation effect. If I click on the vertical layer, drag it above the horizontal layer, then click on the horizontal layer and drag it out of the group, so just swap those two around, you'll see that my lines have now changed to be horizontal. This might not be for this one, like for my image, the vertical one is definitely better for me. But you can obviously decide depending on your image what you want to do there. I'm going to leave my lines vertical. Then if you come up to overlay, the action will default to the darker color blend mode, but you can experiment with blend modes for this for what might work sort of best with your image. What this one is essentially doing, because we're using a darken blend mode, for this one here, if I double click in, you'll see that the sky area is just completely black. So that 100% black, all these pixels here are going to be darker than anything in any of these layers in the same area. So the same area, the pixels in these layers are brighter than this black. So when we apply the darken blend mode, just any of these, darken, multiply, color burn, linear burn, or darker color, it's using this black section here to stencil out where the lines should be. So if I turn that off, you'll see these lines go all the way to the top. That does look cool, but it's kind of not what we're going for. So yeah, if you want to control where the lines end, then you need to edit this layer. For example, you could go to filter, blur, and Gaussian blur. You could add like a little 0.9 blur to it, and then go to image adjustments, threshold, and use a threshold control to just sort of refine it a little bit if you wanted to. But yeah, I'm not going to do that for this one. I'm happy with this as is. So with the overlay layer selected, I'm going to hold shift and click on the vertical, right click and convert to smart object. And for me, I'm just going to rename this to say action, and then I'm going to hide this one. I'm now going to run through that process again manually and explain exactly what the action is doing. I'm not going to use the action for this time. I'm gonna like do it step by step manually. If you're not interested in learning how I put this together, then you can skip ahead, and I'm gonna show you what effects you add at the end, like glow and coloring and stuff like that at the end of the video, if you just want to finish off your graphic that you just did with the action. But if you want to learn something, stick around and I'll explain sort of how I arrived at this effect. So got that hidden. I'm just gonna take a minute and find an image to use. So I'm gonna try out on this image of a bear by this photographer named Andre Tan. I've used this image before years ago, never for this effect though, so I'm going to give it a go. I'll also link that in the description as well. Same as before, I'm just dragging my work into my document. Can't remember if I said at the beginning of the video, I'm working in 2160 by 2700 at 300 dpi, and I'm just going to scale my image up to cover the area that I want to affect. So for me, I mainly just want the mouth. And then to cut out the rest of this data here, I'm just going to get the selection tool, select over my document area, and then press Ctrl and J to do a new layer via copy for that image. And then I'm just going to delete the image. And for this one, I'm just going to name it manual image. If you're going to build this effect with me, I'm going to tell you what I'm naming each of these layers. I highly recommend you just name them the same thing that I do and just go with the same settings that I do. And then once you're done, go back and mess with settings afterwards, because if you lose track of the layers that I'm editing and the assets I'm creating because you didn't name the layers, then it's probably not going to work and you're going to have to rewatch the video. I'm going to convert this to a smart object, and then I'm going to duplicate the layer and rasterize it, and then duplicate it again, and then convert these individually to separate smart objects. Doesn't matter which, but name one of them vertical and the other one horizontal. So first we're going to work on the horizontal layer. So double click on the thumbnail to edit the contents of the smart object, and right click on the layer, go to blending options, then come down to color overlay, tick the box. Mine's already set up, but go into the color picker and just enter 50 in this box. Make sure your hue and saturation values are at 0, and this will give you a 50% grey color. When I refer to 50% grey for the rest of the tutorial, this exact color setting is what I mean, so just bear that in mind. Press OK, that's all we're going to do. Right click and rasterize the layer style. Then convert this image here to a smart object. Next, you are going to come up to image rotation, and then click on either of the 90 options so it flips it. Then come up to filter gallery, and mine's already done here because obviously I've been messing with this effect today. Come to the sketch folder, go down to halftone pattern, choose the pattern type of line, size of 5, contrast of 0, and press OK. So these are your first set of lines that are going to be used in the end effects for the modulation lines. So next, you don't have to do this, but go to filter, other, and minimum. So minimum is commonly used as a contributing effect in noise reduction. You also might have seen people who do like illustrations or like by hand stuff with like a tablet use minimum to control like the stroke width on a finished rasterized illustration. But today we're just using it to make sure the lines stay smooth. So if you were working in a smaller document size, or if your image is particularly noisy, then maybe do it, but you don't really need to do it if you're just following exactly on with me. Just make sure you preserve roundness, not squareness, and just go for something below 1 pixel. I'm going to go with 0.5. Then back to filter, blur, Gaussian blur, and again just add something below 1. I'm just going to go with 0.5. Obviously I know these changes aren't visible, but don't worry, if you zoom in they will be. Last thing you are going to do is go to image, adjustments, and threshold. So at this point you can choose the thickness of the lines because of the effects we've just applied to it a little bit more than you can by just choosing the line size in the filter gallery. So if you were wanting to change the line size rather than doing it in filter gallery, I would recommend doing it this way. What I'm going to do is I'm going to leave mine at 147, and I'm just going to copy that number because I'm going to need it in a minute, or you can just remember 147 or whatever number you picked, and then press OK. Now I'm going to rename this layer to be edit threshold, and that's just so I remember if I'm going to come back in here and edit this asset to only edit it using the threshold filter, not the other ones. Once you've done that, use Control and S to save the changes to the smart object and close that tab, and it'll ping you back over to your original document. And you'll notice now that this has been flipped because you flipped it in the smart object. So go up to window and make sure properties is ticked, and then just open up your properties tab. You'll see here there is a rotation option. So if you didn't know, you can apply rotation sort of like data to the smart object and it'll sync up. Yeah, just type in 90 there to get it back to how it was before. Just gonna put my properties panel back where it was before. At that point, we're now done with the horizontal asset, and I'm gonna hide that. Now come to the vertical layer that you created. Double click that again to edit the contents, and you are just gonna be doing the exact same stuff. So right click, blending options, color overlay with 50% gray, press OK, rasterize the layer style, convert to smart object, and then exact same effects as before. So filter gallery, halftone pattern, size of 5, contrast of 0, pattern type set to line, press OK. Optional minimum filter you can use. Just make sure you are using the exact same numbers and inputs as you used before. So preserve roundness and radius 0.5 or whatever you went for in your document. Next is the Gaussian blur, which I did at 0.5, and then the last thing is the threshold adjustment, which is why I needed to remember my number, which was 147. I'm just going to paste that in there. If you don't remember what your number was, you can just go back to your document and double click into the horizontal layer, then double click on the threshold, smart filter, and it'll tell you what your number was. But yeah, and then last step is just rename threshold control. That's that done, and then do Control S to save the changes to the smart object and close that as well. So you've now done with the vertical layer 2. So you've created your horizontal and vertical line assets that you need. So now you need to set out your layers so that you have your original image on top of both of those assets, then your horizontal asset, and then the vertical asset underneath that. So just lay them out like mine. Obviously you won't have this action layer here. At the bottom you need the vertical layer, in the middle you need the horizontal, then at the top you need the image layer. Then you are going to put your image layer and your horizontal layer into a group together. So click on the image, hold shift, and click on the horizontal layer. Then down at the bottom of the layers palette, just click on the folder icon to create a new group. Then rename that blending group, and change the blend mode of the group to multiply. If you turn all your layers on now, you'll know you've got it right if it looks like you've just got this basically where it's just added lines to your work. Next up, we are going to be prepping your displacement map and your masking layer. So it's sort of halfway there at this point. Duplicate this manual image or whatever you've named it, duplicate your artwork layer and put the duplicate above the folder you made and duplicate it again. Name one of your duplicates displacement and then name the other one overlay. So the first asset we're going to create is the overlay asset. So double click into the overlay smart object. First, we're going to work on the overlay. So this one you can come back to later and it's not that important. I showed you this before. Go to image, adjustments and levels and just increase the contrast to the point that you're happy with. I just need to hide my displacement actually. So let me do that again. So yeah, just increase the contrast, bearing in mind what I showed you before where the lighter sections of the image are being let through and the darker sections of the image are cutting out the lines. For me, I really want the teeth and sort of the mouth area to show up. What I don't want is the fur to be the main bit you can see. So I'm gonna pull in this left sort of lever here toward the middle and leave my right lever just out toward the right, and the middle one I'm going to push that to the right a little bit as well. If you want some extra customization, you can do as much sort of contrast, luminance, whatever editing as you want. So I'm going to do a curves layer here, and if you want, like, you can even do some like adjustment layers. So I'm going to add an adjustment layer and pull the brightness all the way down on it, but then I'm going to do a little bit of image masking. So I'm going to mask, so the adjustment layer I've just created only affecting these light areas, and then if I just invert that, you'll see now that the main bit that is coming up here is the teeth and these bits of fur and stuff. So I'm just going to put those together by converting them to a smart object. Same again, if you are working with a particularly noisy image or on a smaller file size, or if you're just worried about how rough the image might be, then you can apply the minimum filter, but you don't need to do that if you don't want to. Once you've done your contrast editing, just go to image, adjustments and threshold, and it doesn't really matter what you set here because you can come back to it later. So I'm just going to leave mine at 74, but yeah, don't worry about what you put there because it's editable afterwards. As I said before, you need to use this one with a darken blend mode. I'm just changing the name back for mine because I merged it with an adjustment layer, but yeah, just use any of the darken blend modes. So I'm just going to go with multiply for mine. That's the overlay asset done with. Last thing you got to prep is the displacement asset. Right click the displacement layer and convert it to a smart object again. Just doing this to avoid making any changes to the smart object we originally created at the start of the video. So now you've sort of doubled up on the smart objects, you can double click into this, and once you're in the displacement smart object, duplicate the layer that's in there, name one of them image and then the other one gray, and again you're going to be adding a 50% gray. So right click the gray layer, blending options, color overlay, set it to these settings, so 50 in the black, 0 in saturation, 0 in hue, and click OK. Rasterize the layer style and then come up to image and change it to anything in the darken category. So linear burn and color burn for me are probably a bit much, so I'm going to go for multiply and then come up to filter, go to blur, Gaussian blur. I'm going to recommend Gaussian blur. What's important to bear in mind is, as I said before when we were running the action, the blur aspect of this is just to soften the image for displacing your lines. If you want to be really clever with it, you can go into blur gallery and create a blur effect where, for example, in this one, I could leave the teeth only slightly blurred, but blur the rest of the image. So like the teeth would have more jagged lines, for example. But for this tutorial, just because ultimately all I want to do today is show you how it works, I'm just going to go for Gaussian blur. The only ones I would recommend completely avoiding altogether for this effect are things like radial blur, motion blur, and box blur. Just because they're not really creating the type of blur that we need for softening. But yeah, I'm gonna go Gaussian blur, and for my image I'm gonna go 16.6 and press OK. And then for this one, you're not gonna Control S to save. You're gonna come up to File, Save As, navigate somewhere that you will remember, change the file type from PSB to PSD. You can see here, this is the horse displacement I did just a minute ago. So I'm going to just name it bear and click on save. Now exit this and go back to your original that you had open a minute ago. And because we've got the actual PSD file for the displacement layer now, you don't need this layer anymore. You can just delete that layer altogether. And at this point, you're ready to start displacing. So all you want to do here, this is the bit that I just could not work out. Like I've been at this point for like 2 weeks and I couldn't work out what I was doing wrong. And the bit I was doing wrong was I was displacing the wrong thing by the wrong thing. So I'll explain what that means. As I said earlier, if you've named these how I've named them, this is going to be a little bit easier for you. So you might have noticed that I've named the layer with the vertical lines horizontal, even though the lines are vertical, and I've named the horizontal lines vertical, even though the lines are horizontal. And that's because the names are there to remind you what you are going to displace using. So select your vertical layer, so the layer named vertical, go to filter, distort and displace, and because you're using the vertical layer, just input 0 for horizontal and 100 for vertical. You can leave all these settings the exact same and press OK. Then navigate to wherever you just saved your displacement map and open that up when you're prompted to. Then go to the horizontal, go to filter, distort, displace, and again the layer name is there as a reminder that you put 0 in vertical and 100 in horizontal. And if you've done it right, at this point you should now have lines generated for both of these files. So same output as the action if you wanted to swap them around. So if I just put the vertical layer there and then pull the horizontal layer out of the group, see the line swap over. This image maybe not as good as the horse image, to be honest with you. Maybe if I was to repeat this and this wasn't for a video, I might go and do some of the editing again to like the contrast and stuff of the image, but it is what it is at this point. You can always edit this threshold layer here if you're unhappy with like the thickness or like where the lines are appearing, or if you want to, you can double click into one of these smart objects here. So if I go into the horizontal one and if I change the threshold to, let's say, 217, press OK, Control S to save, and then come into the vertical one, double click threshold, and then mirror the change there as well. Control S to save and exit. You'll see the lines are a little bit thinner, which is, it looks a little bit better. If you were unhappy with the displacement, you can of course go and open up the displacement map you saved and either increase or decrease the strength of the Gaussian blur. But because I'm on a time limit for this video, like I'm not going to go through and get it perfect. At this point, I'm just going to move forward and show you how I will go about adding color and glow to the effect. So I'm going to go and convert this to a smart object, same as I did with the action, and I'm just going to name this one manual. So comparing the two, I do think the action has given me better results, but it could just be because of the image. I don't really know why. But from this point, if you go to filter, there's obviously a number of ways you can do this. This is all kind of personal preference from this point. Go to filter gallery, make sure your swatches, your color swatches here on the left are black in the foreground and white in the background, and then in filter gallery you come to the distort section and click on diffuse glow. Obviously just pull the little preview over to some of your lines, turn the graininess down. This clear amount here is just glow threshold, so get your glow threshold to a point where the lines are actually glowing, and then turn up the glow amount a little bit and then press OK for that. Then this little sort of slider with lines, I don't really know what this icon's supposed to be, to be honest, but if you double click on this and then change the blend mode to screen, it'll overlay that glow on your lines, and then you can go and continue sort of adding effects on. So I'm going to add a Gaussian blur to like contribute to the glow. Same again if you just click on the little icon next to the Gaussian blur and just change the blend mode to screen. From here, if you just create a new layer and go to window and color, you'll have this little color picker pop up. Select a brush, just any brush really. I'm just going to go for a 0% hardness brush, and then just with your bracket keys on your keyboard you can control the size of the brush. So I'm going to go for something like, I don't know how to describe the size of that, but yeah. And then if you wanted something like crazy multicolored or more than one color, so for me I'm gonna go for like some blues in mine and just start like painting over the image and just changing the color every time you paint, just like this. I've abandoned the blue thing. I'm just going for all sorts of colors now. You'll have seen me do this in tutorials before if you've been around for a while. It's not really the most advanced like coloring technique, but yeah, it's like a little bit of fun. Then just change the blend mode for that to color, and then you can blur this too if you like. If you press Ctrl U, you can then like shift around the hues and stuff so you get something you like. So I quite like that orange for the horse, so I'm going to press OK there. Alternatively, if you wanted to, last month in April I put out a chromatic aberration template for free, so there's a good chance if you're watching this you probably already have that. So if you come and run that action, in fact let me just clear my smart filters. If you don't have this action, it's not free anymore, apologies. It was free for my April simple free download. I have a video on chromatic aberration actually anyway on the channel, so if you go watch that, you can work out how to do this yourself. But yeah, I'm gonna run the RGB separator action, and then I can start creating some like cool chromatic aberration effects on the modulated lines. And then if I convert that to a smart object and just move those smart filters over to that, you'll see the glow is a little bit more chromatic and stuff. From here, like it's really personal preference and up to you what you want to do with the effect. I'm sure you've all colored your own artwork before. I'm sure you have all used lots of different ways to color your work, like gradient maps, doing this stupid color spamming thing. You could go and apply a color overlay to the image and then just change the blend mode to color. Pick something you want like red, or you can do hue and saturation. You can take it into After Effects and color it there with something like animated if you wanted to. It's completely up to you from here. If you follow the steps that I've just shown you here, for example, like if I've colored it now, but I wish I did the other line direction, I wish I did it horizontal. Well, because you did it all with smart objects, you can go in here, swap the horizontal out for the vertical, Control S to save, and now you have still got your colors, but it's just on the alternative effect. Same as like if you wanted to go in and change all these lines and add new effects or like experiment with it, the way if you followed how I've done it, because we're using smart objects and we are instancing things and naming things and not using like destructive effects, it's really easy to just go in and edit and customize and stuff. As I said at the start of the video, like having this in my office every day, coming in and looking at it every day, where like especially if I stay up all night and I see like sunrise, the light coming in and hitting off of this is crazy. So looking at that every day and obviously working with Photoshop every day and stuff, I knew that it was just in my head, like I don't know how I knew, but I knew that it was just a case of applying a soft enough displacement to a set of equally spaced, equally wide black and white lines to get the shape to come through. And you might have seen me live like tweeting this, but yeah, I was like completely stuck with the fact that when I was doing it and I was trying to replicate it, what I was doing was displacing the horizontal lines horizontally, and that didn't do anything. So that's why I sort of flipped the names around, and that's literally like, when you boil it down, that is the entire effect. The entire effect is having equally spaced lines and applying a soft enough displacement that the lines curve rather than just shift out. In fact, before I end the video, see if I can get anything cool out of the bear image. I think I should be like, the teeth look really cool. It's just that I know I've said this in previous videos, but Photoshop's lack of any real glow effect is quite annoying. But yeah, damn, this looks sick actually, these teeth and stuff. Yeah, I'm really happy with that actually. That was cool. I'm gonna leave it there for this video. If you have any questions, or if you would like to request a video, or if you want me to cover an effect that you're not sure about, please let me know. Still really trying to grow this channel. I'm really trying to escape the daily Instagram post trap that I'm in right now. So if you can subscribe or like the video or engage in any way, share this with your friends or whatever, I really appreciate it. And yeah, the only thing I did want to say is just that if you if you use this effect and sell it to a client, like, go ahead, good for you. If you're gonna replicate this and this process and put it in your own action or anything like that, I just want to reiterate that like this, if anyone is going to invest money in this effect, then the best way to do that is through analog equipment or through a plugin that was designed for the effect. This is not the optimal way to do it. This was attempt number 4 for this video, so I finally got it done. Thank you for watching. I really appreciate you. Thank you for all the support, and tag me if you make anything with this. I really want to see. Other than that, have fun with it, and I will see you in the next video.